Hello, this is Maestro Brunoo. Listen to a chilling story. Kids, are you really leaving already? The bus probably won't wait for just the two of you. Mom's slightly irritated voice came from the kitchen. We'll make it. Don't worry, I joked back, still fixing my appearance in the hallway mirror. You just can't get rid of us, huh? Don't you think you talk too much? I asked, smiling. All right, you didn't see a thing. Go gather your brother and let's go see those old folks, Mom said, her grin not leaving her face. Mom was young, and somehow our relationship had always been more like friends. We teased each other, argued with shouts and yells, and sure, I'd often get smacked for it, but hey, her hand was heavy. Still, it was all out of love. I didn't particularly enjoy visiting my grandparents. Usually, my brother and I were sent there when my parents wanted some romance time. Two brats around just weren't appropriate. I could have sneaked out of the house until the next morning if needed, but my little brother Max could hardly go anywhere. For who are you dressing up like this, huh? For Grandpa? I teased. Mom? What? Mom, you're the one going. Relax. Grandma will probably hand you galoshes and you'll be hopping around the garden like some fancy city lady. Mom, I have to look good for myself. All right, beauty queen, grab your bags and move out. I already called a taxi, Mom said, kissing me and my little brother Dima, wishing us a safe trip before closing the door behind us. Call when you arrive and give our love to Grandma and Grandpa. Okay, will do, I shouted, though I thought to myself, I'll definitely tell Grandma. But Grandpa? Unlikely. He probably won't even remember me. The thing is, our grandma is still quite lively, but Grandpa has been seriously ill for several months now. I'm not even sure what happened to him. Stroke or heart attack? I always mix them up. Anyway, he's been bedridden ever since. I remember clearly. It was late at night when the phone rang. A neighbor must have called, and my parents rushed off to the village in their pajamas. I was scared and stayed up all night with Dima, waiting for them. And ever since then, Grandpa's been lying there. Thankfully, Grandma takes care of him. When I visit, I help around the house and with Grandpa too, of course. It's not exactly pleasant, changing diapers, feeding him, just sitting by his side, holding his hand, talking about random things, but it happens. So we got into the taxi and headed toward the bus station, from where we'd take the bus to the village. It was quite far from our city, usually about an hour's drive, but with traffic jams leaving the city, it could stretch to 2. Grandma always greeted us with open arms, and I could already smell her pies as soon as we stepped off the bus. Lyra, I'm not sleeping in the same room with Grandpa, my brother suddenly blurted. Of course you won't. What are you talking about? It's your own grandfather. Did you forget? You've grown so big now, I teased Dima, who blushed like a tomato. Come on, let's go inside quickly. I've baked some pies. You've arrived just in time for dinner. Smell that? We could have detected it from the bus stop, I laughed. While we changed into our home clothes, Grandma set the table. On my way to the kitchen, I stopped by Grandpa's room to say hello and give him a little hug. He only grunted something incomprehensible. Still, we sort of talked. I told him about school, my parents, friends, how everything was going well. I even thought he seemed happy for me. I stayed with him for maybe 10 minutes. Then Grandma called us to dinner. We spent the whole evening at the kitchen table, devouring her delicious pies. Later, when I went to the bedroom, I asked Grandma, "How's Grandpa doing?" I wasn't sure. Maybe I imagined it, but she seemed reluctant to talk about it. I wanted to change the subject, but I didn't get the chance. Honestly, she leaned toward me, whispering so no one else could hear. I'd have cried for a couple of days, then moved on with my life. Honestly, God forgive me. She crossed herself, glancing at the icon in the corner, and continued, but he's just wearing my nerves down. Sometimes I feel like leaving the house just to get away. Why? I asked. Oh, Lyra, she sighed. It's not even about this or that. He just constantly grumbles. Nothing ever pleases him. But how do you know what he doesn't like? Oh, honey, we've been together almost 50 years. I know him inside out, and after all this time, I've learned to understand his groans and moans. Wow, I exhaled, imagining how hard it must be for her. Even in normal times, Grandpa was a rather peculiar man. Not everyone could get along with him. Now, especially. But that evening, Grandma seemed different. She tried to be kind and hospitable, constantly forcing a smile, but it all felt... I probably wouldn't have noticed it, but then I pulled out a cigarette from my bag and lit it. Grandma, can I smoke? You smoke now? Really? Isn't that a bit young, my girl? She asked, surprised. Grandma, you've known about it for ages. Did you forget? Or maybe you've just gotten too old to remember. All right, I won't tell your mom, or your dad especially. They'd bury me alive. She chuckled and placed an ashtray on the table. The bitter smoke slowly filled the kitchen, drifting lazily out through the slightly open window. You've grown up. So tired, so beautiful, Grandma said with a hint of sadness in her voice. But she was interrupted by noises from Grandpa's room. There he goes again. Stupid old man. He smells the smoke, doesn't like it. I quickly stubbed out the cigarette. Grandma, don't worry about it. He'll calm down. Whatever. Maybe I should just leave the house, I muttered. Grandma got up and went to Grandpa's room. I stepped outside and lit another cigarette. The light in Grandpa's room turned on, and soon I saw Grandma's silhouette. Shortly after, I heard her voice. Why are you tormenting yourself, you old fool? Your grandchildren are here. Lara came to see you, and instead of being happy, you're just grunting like a mentally challenged person. I was surprised by her tone, but on the other hand, I could understand her. Still, I decided not to get involved. Better not to be caught between two fires. After finishing my cigarette, I returned inside and was shocked. The lights were off everywhere. Dirty dishes and cups remained on the table, even the ashtray. This was so unlike Grandma. She was the kind of woman who couldn't sleep at night if dirty dishes were left out. But now, I was witnessing the exact opposite. Must be exhausted, I thought, and went to the bedroom. Our house was small, just 3 rooms and a kitchen. So I had to sleep next to my already snoring brother. The first night passed relatively quietly. I woke up a couple of times to the rustling in the hallway and the awful creaking of the door to Grandpa's room. Probably Grandma getting up to check on him. But that was normal. She'd told me about these nightly routines during dinner. Morning came with the first rays of sunlight and the neighbor's rooster crowing. Dima was already gone from the bed. He must have woken up already, I thought, and then I heard his voice through the open window. Grandma was working in the garden, and he was buzzing around her. After making myself coffee, I went outside. Good morning, granddaughter. How did you sleep? Fine. I woke up a couple of times during the night. You must have dreamed it, child. I fell asleep right after dinner and didn't wake until 8 a.m. Even forgot to wash the dishes. You must have dreamed someone was walking around. I clearly heard the door creaking. It's so distinctive, you'd never forget or confuse it with anything else. Strange. Either I really dreamed it, or it was so realistic, or maybe Grandma is a sleepwalker. I'm leaning toward the second option. The day flew by quickly, and I didn't notice when it started getting dark. The smell of a delicious dinner was already coming from the kitchen. I decided to call Mom. I went inside. Dima was already sitting at the table, fork in hand. Ran around all day. Got hungry, I said affectionately, ruffling his hair. Here you go, my dear, Grandma said, placing a plate in front of him. Grandma, what is this? He asked, revolted, looking at the plate. Oh my God, have I gone completely senile? Grandma mumbled, snapping out of a daze, quickly grabbing the plate. I made this for the chickens. Got mixed up. Old and crazy, I guess. Relax, Grandma. It happens, Dima said, giving a strangely fake smile. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She seemed completely off, and I couldn't figure out what was bothering her. I'd noticed similar little things throughout the day. We ate dinner in complete silence. Yesterday, the house had been filled with joy, laughter, and conversation. Today, everything was the opposite. We sat in silence until Grandma said, Dima, my dear, why don't you go see Grandpa? You haven't visited him once. He'd be happy to see you." Dima slowly raised his eyes to me. From that look, I immediately understood. He wasn't eager to visit Grandpa. But since Grandma asked, he had to go. I winked at him, and he reluctantly put down his spoon and headed to Grandpa's room. "Grandma, are you okay? How are you feeling?" I asked. She'd been staring out the window for about 5 minutes, chewing a piece of meat that had long since turned to nothing. "What? Oh, I'm fine. An old lady like me." I'd never heard her say anything like this. My grandma had always been positive, even when she was in severe pain. As long as I could remember, I'd never heard her mention death. Grandma got up from the table. "Well, Lyra, I'm going to bed. I'm very tired today." And that was the end of dinner. She went to the bedroom, didn't even change clothes, and just lay down. What's happening to her? Maybe she got sick suddenly? This was so strange. "Dima?" I called my brother and followed him into Grandpa's room. He immediately ran out and hugged me tightly. So tightly it felt like he'd missed me terribly, or was terrified. "Lyra, let's go home, please." "What? What happened?" "I'm scared," he almost cried, clinging to me. "Tomorrow I'll call Mom and we'll leave. Provided there's a bus. It's nighttime now." He sighed and went to the bedroom. I followed. "What did you see in there that scared you so much? The old man lying in bed?" "He was sitting on the bed. It stank so badly, I don't want to go back there." "Well, the stench wasn't surprising. Old people sometimes soil themselves. But him sitting up? That was odd." "Wait, what do you mean, sitting?" "Just like we're sitting now." "All right, Lara, I'll talk to Grandma tomorrow. Go to sleep." "Where are you going?" "I'll go smoke and come right back." "Can I come with you?" "Why? You'll just breathe smoke." "I'm scared." "Everyone's asleep." "It's okay, you're my little man." "Go lie down and rest. I'll be quick." "Here, take your phone and play with it for a bit, okay?" I grumbled, put on Grandma's jacket, it had gotten cold outside, and went into the yard. Everything was so strange. Dima was terrified. Grandma was acting weird. Nothing made sense. Everything was fine yesterday. Soon, I accidentally found the reason. When I went back to grab my phone after lighting a cigarette, I started walking around our small yard. I went into the garden, walked along the path, and noticed a strange, unpleasant smell. The closer I got to the end of the garden, where our manure pit was, the stronger it became. Then, something happened that I still shudder to remember. I approached the manure pit. The stench was so unbearable, I had to cover my nose with my hands. Then I looked closer. Under a pile of rotting leaves and manure, there was a body. I didn't need to dig it up to know who it was. There, in the manure pile, lay my grandfather. I recognized him by his army tattoos on his fingers. Horror overwhelmed me. My legs turned to jelly. I nearly fell into the pit myself. I can't describe what I felt. Tears streamed down my cheeks. My heart felt like it had been pierced. My entire body covered in goosebumps. I backed away, and seconds later, I heard a child scream from the house. Only then did it hit me. What had I done? I should have taken Dima with me. But who was in the house with him now? Who had I visited yesterday? If, judging by what I'd just found, Grandpa had been dead for days. What if it wasn't just Grandpa? The pit was deep. Maybe Grandma was hiding somewhere in there too. These questions raced through my mind as I stumbled toward the house, pulling at the door handle. Locked. Dima hadn't stopped screaming. I could hear it, and my heart was breaking into pieces. When I picked up a nearby rock and raised it, ready to smash the door, the window suddenly lit up. There she was, Grandma. She pressed her horrifying hands against the glass. Unnaturally long fingers, random in length, more like bones wrapped in skin. Her eyes were wide open, fixed directly on me. It wasn't my grandma standing there. Instead of the kind, smiling old lady, something truly terrifying stared at me. Her face twisted, rotten yellow teeth, wild hair moving unnaturally, as if an invisible force was gently swaying it. I don't know what possessed me, but I swung the rock and threw it at the window. Glass shattered to the ground. That's when I heard it, the monster's voice. Leaning on the windowsill, it stared at me and spoke in a chilling, unnatural tone. Then, as if the thought of my little brother inside the house, whose screams had now turned to whimpers, snapped me back to reality, I grabbed a larger brick, the one Grandma always used to prop the front door, and with all my strength, I hurled it. It hit right in the head. The creature shrieked wildly, then collapsed onto the floor. I ran to the house, climbed through another window, the one to our bedroom. "Deema! Deema! Can you hear me?" No answer. I peeked into the hallway and nearly passed out. There stood my grandfather, or rather, something resembling him. Like Grandma, he was now a monster. He swayed in the middle of the hallway. The stench of decay hit my nose instantly. He was rotting alive. Even in the darkness, I could see tiny white worms on his face and neck. His entire lower face, from nose to chin, dangled loosely, detached from the skull, black and rotten like tar. He grunted and staggered toward me, using the walls for support. "Deema!" I screamed again. No answer. He wasn't in the house. I checked the closet, the storage room, the bedrooms, the kitchen. Maybe he'd managed to escape. He was a quick boy. I tried calling him again. The rotting grandpa was getting closer, and behind me, in the kitchen, the thing that once looked like my grandma was regaining consciousness. I didn't hesitate. I jumped out the window and ran, anywhere my eyes could see. My path led straight through the manure pit. That's where I saw it. My brother's lifeless body, lying on the surface, already turning blue. I collapsed beside the pile of manure and screamed from pure animal terror and grief. I didn't know what to do. I tried calling Mom, but it was the middle of the night, and she didn't answer. I couldn't keep calling. The old couple had already come outside. God, how horrifying they looked. Grandma's mouth still twisted on her grotesque face, leaning on the half-rotten grandpa. "What are these creatures? What happened here?" I sobbed aloud. Finally, my survival instinct kicked in. The monsters were closing in. I ran toward the village center, not looking back. Thankfully, I'd remembered to grab my phone when I climbed into the house. I reached the highway, and luckily, a kind man in a truck picked me up and drove me to the city. I pounded on the door of our apartment. Telling them about the monsters my grandparents had become was risky. I knew my mom. She'd never believe such a story. Still, it was obvious from my appearance that I was terrified, that I'd experienced something beyond normal. I decided to take the risk and told them everything, every detail. "Are you insane? Where were you? Where's Deema?" That was their reaction. I had already cried everything I could. I sat there, eyes down, not knowing what to say. The only thing Dad noted was that Grandma had been acting strangely lately. That same night, they jumped into the car and drove to the village. I wanted to go with them, but I'd never, ever go back there. I stayed home, unable to close my eyes all night. Finally, at around 6 a.m., my parents returned. Mom was hysterical. Dad was in shock, trying to calm her. As soon as they entered the apartment, they locked themselves in the kitchen. That's when I overheard their conversation. Apparently, they'd gone around the neighbors the night before. But who were we talking to on the phone? Who did we send the kids to? "I don't know." Dad sighed. "No one's seen them for a week." I tried to join the conversation, but Dad just held me tightly. I asked what had happened. In short, the house was empty. They found no one in the manure pit. No Grandma, no Grandpa, no my little brother. Mom couldn't believe they were all gone. She ran to every possible authority, police, everyone, all in vain. But I clearly remember what happened to them.